Welcome to episode 2 of making a reverse engineered version of the McDonald's food ordering app. We don't have access to the source code, so all we can do is look at the existing product and see how it was made by peeking into the files on the hard drive, which if you unpack the app from iOS, you can see the 430 megabytes of code and art that is inside this monstrosity. It's over 300 megabytes of code, so it's a complete sweat hog. Outrageous that they had to spend that much code to make such a simple app. We're going to build this product in a fraction of the time, a fraction of the size, with a fraction of the effort. First, let's look at the asset files that McDonald's has on the hard drive. Here we can see that they have strings files, localization files, which on iOS have a folder and the last 5 letters are .lproj, and that means a localization project, and inside there are string files. And it's obvious by looking at the contents of the app that they have localized it into 3 languages: English, Spanish, and Canadian French. Let's peek inside the string table for Spanish. This is the way iOS apps typically do it. They use an XML file, and it has a key, which is some kind of string that uniquely identifies the string that you're going to translate, and then the next keyword is the string, which is the content of the string. We scroll down to the bottom of the file, and we can see that it's 10,000 lines long, and since there's 2 lines per string, McDonald's, for some bizarre reason, has 5,000 localization strings for a product that probably doesn't use more than a few hundred. So there's just tons of leftover crap inside this McDonald's app from the various cycles of development that it's gone through. And this is one of the problems with a lot of development systems, is they accumulate crud, like barnacles on a ship. A clever observer will wonder, how does Beads do localization? Let's start by writing a little bit of Beads code, and we declare a variable, and let's say we say message is name and message 2 is Monday. Those strings are in English, and in order to mark the strings as needing translation, these are strings that will be localized, you put empty brackets after the string, like it's a subscript of an array. And then you're going to run it through the translation utility, the localization tool, which is actually going to assign the next unused string number. And then those 2 strings will be string number 1000 and 1002. So the string IDs are numeric, not alphanumeric. It makes them shorter. And I'll then show you how the localization utility operates. In addition to the Beads compiler, one of the executable files we supply in our software development kit is the localized program. The localized program is your string localization utility. And we give you the source code. It's written in Beads. So you run the localized program, and the first thing you do is click on the folder icon, which asks you to select a Beads source code file. We navigate to the folder containing our source code file, and in this case it's Foodie, which is our McDonald's clone. And the first thing it does is it loads in the strings that are in English, which are in the Beads source file, and then it shows you all the Spanish strings and their status, and it's all color-coded. In this particular case, I've clicked the Ask Google button, and I've gone to Google Translate, and it's sent over choose a category, which is the English phrase, and I copied it in Google, and now I'm pasting it into the string there. And I'm marking that string as OK because it's now considered a good translation. We could have marked it as tentative, which is the kind of amber color. But white means missing, amber, there's a legend above. White, yeah, amber means tentative, and attention means you have a conflict, like you've changed the English string, and maybe you have to go back and update the Spanish string. After you've entered your strings and updated them, you save it, and it writes the strings out to a Excel format, tab delimited file that you can go send to a professional translator if you wish. to double check your work. I think you'll find that Beads has a slightly better than Swift localization technology. They're very comparable in power, but I think we've done a slightly better job on how you store the original strings and how you double check for changes in the strings over time. Because if the programmer changes the meaning of a message, the translator may not know that, and you may be left with a stale message that didn't get marked as needing attention. So now let's get back to the McDonald's app itself and say, let's start laying out the screen and build the opening menus for the ordering. But the first thing we have to do is decide, are we going to do an exact copy, which would mean we do a portrait app, or shall we consider a landscape version of the app? This decision is not to be taken lightly. It's the most important decision you make about an app, because if you pick the wrong one, you could be seriously impacting usability. Let's do two mock-ups. Here I'm looking at the portrait, and you can see that one of the messages, which is currently in 5-point type, and we want to have it in 12 or 10-point, is truncated and a little ugly in portrait. Let's take the same text and put it into landscape mode. This is looking pretty good. We're able to see the text well, read it well at 12-point, and if we want, we could use 10-point. But this is the normal size of a column in a newspaper or a magazine where you have a certain number of words across per line. If you have too many words, people have trouble following the line, and if you have too few words, your eye jumps around and gets lost easily. We want our users to be able to read the text in the app, even if they're 70 years old. 70-year-olds have way more money than 20-year-olds. And so you don't want to exclude the customers who have the money. So let's think about this one last time. Should we go for legibility, or should we just copy the herd? This is the fundamental decision. In this particular app, it isn't hard to make the decision. McDonald's made a huge mistake, and so did Uber Eats, Eat24, Taco Bell, and every other single food ordering app I've looked at is in portrait. And they did it wrong. They should have made it in landscape. The legibility is poor. You have type sizes below 5-point. That's actually illegal under the American Disabilities Act to make things illegible. So let's look at the first pass on Foodie, our food ordering app. Here we pick the restaurant. And then after we pick the restaurant, we went into McDonald's. We go to the sandwiches and we click on sandwiches. And then we see a list of all the sandwiches. We have a big fat scroll bar on the right so your thumb can move up and down quickly. And let's say I pick the double quarter pounder with cheese, and then I could adjust the quantity. Notice how big and fat the button is, how legible everything is, how gigantic the type is. And then we go to the cart and we added it to the cart. Now we're going back to our sandwich picker. We go to the payment section. We're now in the shopping cart looking at the summary of our order. And we go, okay, I'm ready to go to the payment section. And now McDonald's allows 4 credit cards on file. So we're going to let you pick from up to 4 cards. You notice one of them is marked as expired. And if I try to use an expired card, it gives me a choice to either fix the card's expiration or forget it and go do something else. And if I ask to add another card, now I'm going to go into the card input dialog, and I need to put in the, here's a basic credit card form information, and I'm going to cancel out of that. That's where we are in the app so far, and I've posted the source code so you can see how much work it takes to build this. That's what we're going to cover today. If you have any questions, join our Discord group and talk about all the different aspects of Beads and how I'm building this gigantic app, which is very valuable commercially, and I hope you recognize how much simpler this is than doing it in Swift.